Alright, in this video you are going to learn how to set up Linux managed hosts using ad hoc commands. So setting up managed hosts, what do you need to take care of before you can do that? Well, if a host meets the following minimal requirements, you can use Ansible to take care of further configuration. The host must have SSH running and reachable, and there must be a user with administrative privileges. If you don't meet both of these requirements, you need to manually change it before you can start using Ansible to set up your hosts. And once they do meet the requirements, you can use ad hoc commands to configure these hosts in an easy way. Of course, ad hoc commands is just one way. You can also use Linux shell to set up the hosts, but this is a course about Ansible. So I would like to show you how to use Ansible to configure Ansible. Makes sense, doesn't it? Right, before we get started, let's have a look at the tasks that are involved. First, you need to ensure that SSH is running on all of the hosts. You need to include host names in the inventory. You need to create the Ansible user on the managed nodes. You need to set a password for this user, configure SSH key-based login using SSH keygen as well as SSH copy ID, and then you need to configure privilege escalation. This is the high-level task overview of everything that we are going to do. In case you are getting lost in the details while we move further in this video, no worries. Just have a look at this, and that should bring you back to what exactly it is that you are doing at the specific moment. Now let's get started and let's set up a managed host. First, you need to make sure that you have Ubuntu Server LTS 2004 or later, as well as Rocky 8.5 or later with SSH and etc host name resolving set up. You need to create a file with the name inventory and the following contents. And once you do, you can use an ad hoc command to set up the Ubuntu host to start with. Let's go check this out. So we are starting at the Ubuntu server. And why is that? Well, for the simple reason that this is not an Ubuntu server. This is Ubuntu Workstation, and you can perfectly manage Ubuntu Workstation with Ansible as well, but you need sudo apt install OpenSSH-server. That is a package that is not installed by default on the Ubuntu desktop edition, and if it's not there, then you cannot manage the Ubuntu environment. So here we go. I'm installing the OpenSSH server, and before we move forward, let's verify that it indeed is working using sudo systemctl status sshd. There we can see SSH is running. Good. That means that we can move forward to the control host, and in the control host I created the directory lesson 1, and I already created an inventory file. Inventory is the inventory of everything that you are going to do, and for this part of the demo we need Ubuntu as well as Ansible 1 as well as Ansible 2. You know what? Let me use a group, an inventory group with the name Rocky to make it a little bit more convenient to address the Ansible 1 and the Ansible 2 machines, which are Rocky machines. I will show you later how this is really not necessary if you are using Ansible facts, but for now it's convenient if we do. And that means that at this point we are ready to set up the Ubuntu machine using an ad hoc command. And the ad hoc command is going to be Ansible. Every ad hoc command starts with Ansible -i inventory. Ansible doesn't know where to find the inventory at this moment, so we need -i inventory. On Ubuntu. Ubuntu is the name of the host that we are addressing. And then we use -m user to address the user module. And this user module needs a couple of arguments, which is name is Ansible, as well as create home is yes. The thing is, if you create a user on Ubuntu, the user by default does not get a home directory, which is not very convenient. So just make sure that the user does get a home directory by using create home is yes. Then we need -u, and I'm using -u student for the simple reason that my Ubuntu machine has a default user with the name student. -b is for become. I need to run this command with escalated privileges, and that is where become comes in. And then minus lowercase k is going to prompt for an SSH password, and minus uppercase k is going to prompt for a sudo password as well. Then I'm pressing enter. And there we go, the SSH password. I can just press enter for the become password, and there we go. We can see that the command is telling me changed true. What does that mean? It means that it has changed something. And what did it change? Well, it created a user with the name Ansible and the shell bin sh and the UID 1001. So on the Ubuntu machine, we have a user. That's a nice start. Let's go check out the next steps we need to take. All right, at this point, we have initially set up the Ubuntu machine, and we can move forward doing something like that on the Rocky machine. So here we can see the command. I will just show you the command. The important part here is that our users on Ubuntu as well as Rocky need a password. And we are going to use the shell module in order to do so. The thing is that on Ubuntu there is chpasswd, which allows you to change the password for a user. On Rocky and other Red Hat related distributions, there is passwd -- standard in, and we are going to use both of them. The interesting thing with both of these commands is that they have a pipe. Pipes don't work in the command module in Ansible, and that is why in these commands we are using shell. Next, we are going to create an SSH key pair and press enter on all the questions that are asked. And once the SSH key pair is created, we can use SSH copy ID to copy it over to the managed nodes. And then we can test with a command like this. So here is the overview of all the commands. Let me just demonstrate. All right, let's get started with the first command, which is Ansible -i inventory. On Rocky, because I want to do this on all the Rocky machines, -m user. Again, we are calling the user module. -a name is Ansible, and -u root -k. Some minor differences. Minor difference number one is that Rocky is the name of a group, a host group, instead of the name of an individual host. I want to do this on 2 hosts at the same time. The user module only needs name is Ansible and not to create home is yes, because that's default behavior on Rocky. And on Rocky, I am going to address the root user, so -u root. As I'm going to use the root user, I don't need any become privileges. So we don't have the -b and the -uppercase k. We just go straight in as root. Let's press enter and see what's happening. And oh no, what do we get? Well, we are getting using an SSH password instead of key is not possible because host key checking is enabled. Now, what is the thing? Host key checking is enabled. And that means that if Ansible receives a host key fingerprint from a managed host that it doesn't know yet, Ansible is going to refuse connection. We can change this through the ansible.cfg. But that's something that I want to discuss later. And for that reason, at this point, I am just going to use SSH to Ansible 1. This is the part that was bugging us. So it is telling us, hey, I can't verify the authenticity. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. And that's all that I need. I'm doing that again and again. Yes, I'm sure. And Control-C, I don't even need to log in. The thing is that I need these host keys to be stored. And I can quickly show you they are stored in .ssh known hosts. There we can see that both of the host keys have been stored. And now we can try again running this ad hoc command. So again, the root password. And as you can see on Ansible 2 as well as Ansible 1, it has created the user account for us. So we are good and we can set a password now. In order to do so, we need to address the Rocky machines and the Ubuntu machines differently. So Ansible -i inventory, Ubuntu -m shell. We are using the shell module here. And we are using the shell because in the command that we are running, I am going to use a pipe. Then echo Ansible colon password, which is the username as well as the password, and I need to use the pipe and send that to chpasswd. This is the Ubuntu way that allows you to change a user password without entering an interactive prompt. -u student, -b, we do need to become parameters as well as the SSH password. And that is going to set a password for our user Ansible. Oh, and look at this. We still have the Ubuntu host SSH key issue. So let me fix that by using SSH Ubuntu. And yes, and well, that is enough. And now we can try again. And as you can see, it is changed. And if Ansible is saying something is changed, then that means normally that it has successfully issued the command. So now I'm using Ansible -i inventory on Rocky, -m shell, -a, echo password, pipe pass wd, -- standard in Ansible, -u root -k. And in case you are wondering, hey, why do we have different approaches? Well, that is for the simple reason that Rocky as well as Ubuntu have different commands to change user passwords. I will later show you how to use Ansible plugins to change passwords in a more elegant way. But for now, we are going to continue with the SSH keys. So first, I'm using SSH keygen, which generates an SSH public-private key pair. Just press enter, 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 and you will be good. And then you can use SSH copy ID to all of these hosts. You need to go there one by one. So SSH copy ID Ubuntu. And for every host on which you've done your SSH copy ID, you enter the password and then you continue. Notice that this is a Linux command. It's not very elegant. It is possible to do it with Ansible, but it's complicated. And I don't want to make it too complicated at this point. So I hope you will forgive me for now for using Linux commands instead of Ansible. The thing is, at this point, I've copied the SSH key over to the managed host. And that means that we can use Ansible -i inventory, all -m command -a id, -u Ansible. Oops. So what is this? I'm using the command module, and the command module is going to print the current user ID on all of the hosts using the user account Ansible. So here we verify that the user account Ansible has been set up correctly. There is one thing still missing, but we will take care of that in the next video. That's privilege escalation. But for now, as you can see, the result of the command is showing that I'm working as user Ansible on all of the managed machines.